what made you reach out and apply to PBR?
So I had been following Dee for over a year on Instagram, and around that time my goals were I wanted to get back to strength training. I needed accountability because it had been such a long time and I didn't know where to get started, and I had PCOS and I had a lot of questions related to nutrition and had tried so many different things and really missed eating like the food I grew up eating and wanted to figure out how to make it more PCOS friendly, for the better part of the word.
How did you feel in your body before you joined PBR? And like, were there anything specific that you were struggling with?
There were a lot of things I was struggling with. One was repetitive strain injury in my hands in particular. I wasn't strong, so if I would visit my nephew or visit my family, it would be very hard for me to even lift something heavy, and I would always have to ask for help. I just didn't feel really good about myself. I didn't feel strong and not as independent and self-sufficient as I wanted to be. So that was something I wanted to work on. I also needed help with my nutrition. It had been a couple of years since I had been diagnosed with PCOS, and now I went down a rabbit hole on the internet trying to figure out what foods to eat and what foods to not eat, and in the process kind of deviated away from the foods I grew up eating, and I wanted to get back to it. And one of the things I really liked about BVR was how like there was a focus on, you know, we all have to give up the foods you grew up eating, and I wanted to see how I could fit that into a PCOS lifestyle and get stronger.
Can you give me some examples of how your coach helped you do that?
One example I can think of, like we did a lot of mobility and like strength training work for my wrists and shoulders, and I remember a year later when I went to my nephew's birthday party, I was able to lift the chairs and kind of help them move stuff in and clean up afterwards. And before, I would always bow out of those activities. I'm like, nope, I can't, I'm too weak, my hands hurt, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I remember that was the first time I was able to actually help out and feel good about doing it. And so I think one of the things that I learned from BBR is it's not just about working out for the sake of working out. It's like, how do you do it so that you can do the things in your life that count? Like I want to be able to lift my nephew, like carry him around, play with him. I want to be able to kind of reach up to the top of the cabinet and not have to like say my shoulder hurts. I want to be able to, like, in my move to a new apartment and get new furniture, I want to be able to like move and shuffle things around on my own without needing to ask someone for help. And I feel like I'm at a better spot where I can be more independent and do things on my own today.
Can you give some examples of like how you've learned to balance like South Asian food, or how your coaches have helped you do that?
I think one of my favorite like South Asian foods growing up, like breakfast. So I'm from South India, so that means like I love poha, I love roti, I love chapati, I love all of those things that go great with like different sides. A thing I learned was how I could make them more balanced. And so like if I made like poha, I would always have it with a side of like a little bit more veggies and some Greek yogurt on the side. So I try to, instead of just having like a big serving of poha, I remember my coach gave me like a mental image of your plate and how to kind of balance the plate during your meal. I'm like, okay, one quadrant and that's going to be my protein. One quadrant, that's going to be like my main dish for the day, and I'm going to put a little bit of fruit or veggies or something else that to make my plate a bit more colorful and balanced. And I think that was a game changer for me to think about. And I think in the beginning, I would kind of like quadrant my plates off to kind of help me get that mental model going, and now I do it automatically without even thinking.
So I know you're a product manager and your job must be really busy and really stressful and just intense. Have you learned to kind of balance that with your health goals, and like has that changed over time?
So I would say with work, I mean, right now I tend to travel quite a bit for work. I tend to go for offsites that are 4 to 5 days long at a time, and that means I need to learn how to be flexible with meals, and I need to plan my workouts around work trips. And so what I do during those times are prioritize. I work with my coach ahead of time to see how I can modify my workouts based on what I have available. So many of the hotel hotels that I book have gyms with free weights. And so it's a matter of how do I modify any programs that I have scheduled with what I have available at the gym. And then for nutrition, it's a bit of you plan ahead. I mean, I take my protein snacks and I try to balance things out as much as I can. And with work trips, you don't have a lot of flexibility in what they provide for you. But with that, you can make good choices. So if I have a lunch, I will have a protein snack ahead of time. Sometimes I'll carry protein powder with me, like in my hotel room, and I'll make that ahead of time and I'll just have it. Or if there's a grocery shop nearby, if I had been to this place before, I know I can go get like a Core Power protein shake and I can just have it in my hotel room with me or in my backpack. And it's just like I make sure whenever I get food, I prioritize what is nutritious for my body. So if it's a pizza meal, I'll have a slice, I'll enjoy that slice fully, and they'll always have the side of veggies, which is something they're good about, and I'll make sure to load my plate with veggies and have that. But it's just a matter of being flexible, paying attention to what's on your plate, and just like eating mindfully and slowly, and not just using it as an opportunity to just take care of your body. I think that's the key thing I've learned with all these trips.
Okay. How do you feel differently in your body now?
I feel strong. I feel like my body can do a lot of amazing things that it couldn't do before. So I ran a marathon recently. So I was able to put my body through that rigor, and that I was able to complete 26.2 miles. It performed well. So I'm in awe of what the body can do. I'm able to, before, because of my wrist injury, I was not able to lift even 2-pound dumbbells, and now I can go up to more than 21 pounds.
What was your workout routine like before?
I did a mix of different things. I tried Pilates, I tried rumble boxing. So it was a mix of different things that I did, but Pilates was a big part of my life at one point in time, but that pandemic happened and I did boxing. I hadn't really run. When I did boxing, I actually ended up spraining my wrist so bad that I couldn't continue. And my coach at that time said, well, we're doing a 5K soon in about 5 weeks. I have a 4-week training plan. How about we get you to do that for your cardio since you can't do boxing anymore? And so at that time, it had been over 3 years since I had run. And I was very, I think, a bit skeptical that I could even get back to running, because I couldn't even run a mile at that point in time. How could I do a 5K in less than 5 weeks? And so once I got to that initial 5K, I thought, wait, I can do better. And then I just kept going and I did a 10K. I can do a half marathon. And I just went and did a full marathon a couple of years later. So I think one of the things that BBR helped me is become a runner, which is a huge part of who I am today.
Yeah. How did your nutrition change with running and balancing it?
I think with running, I had to be very particular with my nutrition, because if I didn't fuel my body well, then my runs would suck. That meant really understanding what kinds of foods would work better to fuel your run, what you would need to eat during your run to make sure that you can continue to sustain, especially when you get to run more than 5 miles at a time. And then, once after you run, it's also important to make sure you're getting the right ratio of carbs and protein to help speed up your recovery. So I was really understanding how food can help fuel your run and also help you recover so that you can run another day.
What your family has said about your transformation?
One of the things that I've noticed is after joining BBR, my family has been following my journey and they have been inspired. I see relatives who now lift weights that weren't before, others that, are having more balanced meals. And they ask me questions oh, what protein bars do you like? Oh, what protein shakes should we get? And so I feel like we've gotten to the point where we can talk about fitness, lifestyle, and even some of the choice. I feel like we have much richer conversations now about foods than we did.
And versus in the beginning of your journey, how did they feel about it?
I think in the beginning they were very worried about the lifestyle choices I was making. They saw that I was getting results, and I think that made them curious to give it a try as well. It's in the better part of a year for them to be convinced, but I think they've noticed that that it's really important to take care of your own body. I mean, if we think about us as a South Asian community, we invest in housing, we invest in our education because that sets us up for success for the future. The same thing can be said about our body. Like, we need to invest in our health and making sure that our body can sustain us even when we grow old, because we want to make sure that we can continue to do things. Like for my parents' old age, that is, making sure they can get up after they sit down, that they can reach up to at the top of the cabinet, that they could still go on these hikes when they're old. And so I think it's really clear why it's so important for us to invest in our own health and wellness, because that also sets us up for success in our future.
If you had to describe BBR in one sentence, what would you say?
I would say BBR helped me show up for myself. If there's one thing I could describe about BBR, it's not a magic sauce. It doesn't say this is how your journey should be. It empowers you to rediscover yourself in a really surprising way and continue to show up for yourself.